Hey guys, Soundly here. I took the P1000 out for first set of field observations in Mandeville, Louisiana today. Yes, there is some gum smacking, I know. I'm sure I'll hear all about it in the comments. Enjoy! Hey guys, Soundly here. It's September the 22nd, 2018, fall equinox. And unfortunately today we had overcast skies, as you should be able to see here. I'm in Mandeville, which is about an hour from my house, but still overcast skies there too, so equinox observations weren't going to work out for us today. Instead, we're taking the P1000 for a test drive. We're at Sunset Pier in Mandeville, Louisiana. And standing right here, there's a small pier to our left, and then the main pier is to our right. And we are underneath a gazebo here. Well, not a little gazebo, I guess it's just an overhang or overcover. Well, I don't know what you call this pavilion. There's a little table there. I didn't bring my tripod with me, unfortunately, because my tripod is just not strong enough for the P1000. It's just felt too unstable, to be honest. So I'm going to have to buy a new tripod at some point. But standing here and looking out across Lake Pontchartrain, I can clearly see with my eyes the causeway is disappearing over the horizon around the 16-mile bascule. We're on the north shore, so they count the miles from the south shore, and that's 16 miles from the south shore, which is about 8 miles away from us. And right about that mark, you can actually, before that, you can actually see the causeway starting to sink below the horizon, but right about that mark you can no longer see causeway at all anymore. And with your eyes you can see Three Lakeway Center clearly obstructed, and you can also see New Orleans clearly obstructed. So it is a pretty clear day for summer, to be honest, and I did check the water and air temperature before I came out here. They're relatively close, so we should have some decent observations, probably a little mirage. And I can tell now in this wide angle that it's probably going to be pretty tough to actually make out what I'm seeing with my eyes. The P1000 does go all the way down to 24 millimeter equivalent, so if we zoom it out a little bit to get around 50 millimeter, you should start seeing what I see with my eyes pretty quickly here. I can't tell from the viewfinder, but I think you can see New Orleans obstructed right around center frame. And then if I pan to the right here, you should be able to see Three Lakeway also being obstructed, and the causeway. So let me just try and do a manual pan or a manual zoom. That's not even at full zoom yet, fellas. And that's still a pretty awesome shot. Zoom all the way out, full optical, turned off digital. Wow, that's really good. That's pretty close to what I can do with my telescope, actually. Ooh, losing focus. Back out. Come on. There you go. The autofocus is not too bad, actually. It does lose it once in a while, but it's not too bad. There's Three Lakeway. Yeah, too much movement. I'm going to have to go set it down on that box over there. Pan over to New Orleans. There's New Orleans being obstructed. That's some good contrast, actually. Not too bad. You can see where the mirage is right at the bottom there. But there is clear obstruction. We're talking hundreds of feet. At least 200. That's what Three Lakeway is obstructed by. And I believe New Orleans is a little bit further. So, definite obstruction. So, I'm going to go set it down on the box behind us and try and get another shot.
little bit more stable, hopefully. Let's see. I'll aim for 3 lakeway first. One thing I want you to recognize is that as I zoom in, no amount of obstruction starts coming back. It's the same ratio of obstruction, and really that is what we should expect to see. I mean, the idea that somehow magnification can change the path of light from 24 miles away is really absurd. For anybody that's saying that, I mean, I really have a hard time believing they actually believe that. So right now the focus is in the foreground, looks like. I'm trying to get it lined up. Bear with me. Really need a nicer tripod so I can do some of these things. Okay. Or an L bracket. Actually, that's what I should order, is an L bracket, and just use my telescope mount. Let's see if we can put a manual focus while it's already rolling here. Manual? No, I don't think so. I don't let me change it. There is a full manual video mode. Maybe I should try that. I'm going to cut and be right back. Okay, so yes, there is a full manual focus in video mode, which is really a nice feature. Did not have that with the P900. Ooh, look at that. That is a nice feature. Oh yeah, glad they added that. So, right on the edge there, you should be able to pull the 3 lakeway into focus, which we are doing there. Which leaves the foreground a little bit out of focus. Oh yeah, right about there, looks good. That is nice. So yes, this is full optical here, guys. And that's really, I mean, it's almost about the same type of magnification I get out of my telescope. Actually, I think it probably beats my telescope. Now, the one thing my telescope, I do think my telescope will still beat the P1000 in magnification, only because I can put a 42 megapixel camera on the back of it. So for still frames, I can do it, right? But for 4K, the P1000's actually got better focus than my telescope. So I definitely think this would be a nice little tool to have. I'm probably going to be using this a lot more in my telescope now, most likely. Until the winter, whenever I have the opportunity to take some really crisp shots with my telescope, because I do plan on trying to get it perfectly collimated, and 42 megapixel images from the top of 3 lakeway center of the causeway will be, I should get the best photograph ever taken of it, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and back out here, and let's go to New Orleans. And so I'm going to try and line up in the viewfinder what I'm seeing with my eyes. That's about right at that focal length. This is what you can see with your eyes if you're standing here. It looks about like that. And of course I'm looking on my viewfinder, so depends on what size screen, but say you're looking on your cell phone, probably going to be pretty close to this size-wise, like as far as the angular field of view it takes up. Actually, it's a little bit smaller on the screen. That's pretty close, right there. So, me looking on the view screen, the angular width of the building on the view screen, as I'm currently looking at it with my eyes, is about the same as what I'm seeing in person with my eyes. So, this is the point I was trying to make out before, is that there's really no excuse. You can come out here and see this with your eyes. I mean, your eyes can see this. Our eyes have just phenomenal resolution compared to these cameras. So simply come out here and look at it, you know? I mean, every single night you can see New Orleans being obstructed by the horizon, clear as day, all lit up and very sharp because it's lights against a dark water. Anybody can see it. So let's zoom in on New Orleans. That's insane zoom right there. Holy cow. That's amazing. You can definitely see some mirage down there at the bottom, but we're talking hundreds of feet being obstructed right now. Pretty incredible. So it's an awesome thing to see in person, guys. You should really do it. And really anywhere where there's a large body of water like this, you should be able to see similar observations. It didn't have to be in New Orleans. But this is pretty obvious and easy to do for anybody that lives in this area. And now with the P1000, I can zoom in and out. I'll be able to live stream at some point. Didn't want to do that today since I'm just taking this for a test drive, and really the live stream stuff I'm hoping to do as the weather starts to cool off. Things get a lot more crisp and clear. But again, I'm at Sunset Pier, Mandeville, Louisiana, and anybody can come here. It's a public park, so come check it out for yourself.
As I mentioned, my telescope can still outperform the P900 in raw magnification power if we're talking about attaching a 42 megapixel camera, which I do have. However, the P900 has very sharp focus compared to my telescope. My telescope has a very shallow depth of field, whereas the P900 has a much broader range as far as depth of field goes. So it's going to be a trade-off one way or the other. I am going to attempt to get my telescope collimated a little better and some fine-grained focus. There's some attachments you can get for that. So we'll see. When the winter comes around and I have both, I'll do some comparison shots. But obviously the zoom in and out is pretty awesome with the P900, so that can't be done on the telescope.
So I'm at the west side of the causeway on the north shore, and I wanted to point out that this cell tower right here is really close and in line with the observation I make from Three Lakeway Center of this side. And I misidentified, I mentioned this in another video, I misidentified this wind turbine. Actually, I thought the wind turbine was visible, but I believe it's this. It's got to be this that's actually visible. And in the observation I made, you can see the wind turbine to the left, which is just like a little white smudge. So that's an interesting point to bring up there. But there's a lot of construction around here right now. But this is the normal location that I normally come to get this observation of from the west side of Three Lakeway Center. And I believe this is pretty much where Jose was. It's having a hard time focusing down there, handheld. But there you go. Clear obstruction. And curvature of the causeway. A whole lot less miraging than Jose's observation. Still some down there. But the thing to point out is that, I mean, I can get away from the miraging altogether and just come back and look at these back here that aren't even close to the mirage, and you can still see obvious curvature. So, on the water line too. That's the thing to point out. The water line is curving. Not just the top of the huts, not just the causeway, but the water line itself. So I'm going to walk a little bit closer and take another shot. So here's another thing to point out is that this riprap right here is all, and this wall right here. See this wall? I mean, we are, whew, this is scary. This wall's got to be like 6 or 7 feet, 5 to 7 feet, I don't know. It's pretty tall. I could get down there. I don't want to get down there, but it's pretty high. The elevation of the base of that windmill or wind turbine over there is about 10 feet above the water. So that should give you an idea. Now, this is a much better angle. I'm not sure why Jose didn't come here. I've actually mentioned in other videos that you could come down here and set your camera up like on these concrete platforms right here. So let's try and get to an angle where we can actually look down at a shallow angle and take advantage of perspective compression. Let's see what this looks like. Now, notice while I zoom in that nothing is being revealed. It's still just as obstructed. I'm going to try and set my camera down so it's more stable. See if that'll work. That's not even full zoom. No, it's already shaky. That's full optical right there. I'm going to back up and do it again. Alright, now I've set my camera down on this concrete. And hopefully around the edge here, and hopefully I can get a little bit more stable shot. Notice that nothing comes back from over the edge whenever I'm zooming in. See if I can't raise that up a little bit. This lens cap. Focus pretty good sometimes, kind of like the P1000. It does remind me of that. Alright, there's full optical. I'm going to try and get into a stable position here. So let's rearrange some things, bear with me. So a whole lot less mirage going on than when Jose was here. That's pretty stable. Still got a little shake in it because I have to touch it. I'm gonna try and set it all the way down. I wish I had a tripod. element is the lens cap that's sitting underneath it, and just to keep it from falling off the edge into the water. That gives you a pretty good indication of what you see here on a typical day during the summer. And the mirage is there, but it's not near as bad as Jose's mirage. The curve is pretty obvious, and the obstruction is even more obvious. Come back with a better tripod, or with a tripod that's better than the one I have. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's go ahead and pan over to the bridge itself and look at the water line. That's the key thing to take a look at here. One thing I do have to say about the P900 is the sharpness as compared to my telescope is just, this beats the telescope sharpness for sharpness, focus, any day. I have looked into some other options for getting my telescope a little bit more sharp, but so far I haven't pulled the trigger on anything. I'll have to buy something to help me out. Get some like fine grain focus on my telescope and see if that'll help. But the depth of field of my telescope is not even comparable to the P900. So check out that water line. The water line itself is curving. It's pretty obvious. Come back here with a weed whacker.
This observation was September 22nd, 2018 at Fontainebleau State Park. I had to add a voiceover because the wind was so bad. But basically what I'm capturing here is the crepuscular rays. The right side of my observation over here is the end of the causeway. And as I pan across, I'm panning across towards New Orleans. New Orleans, that's the bascule almost center frame right now, and New Orleans is on the left of that. And here's the thing, if it was a close local sun, then those two locations would have to be experiencing different times, because the angle of the sun tells us what time of day it is. Because those two locations, which are only 24 miles apart, or about 24 miles apart, 24, 28 miles apart, because those two locations aren't experiencing different times, we know that the close local sun based on crepuscular rays is completely bunk.
September 22nd, 2018. We're at Fontainebleau State Park. Out here. From here, New Orleans is clearly visible on the horizon. Looks like things have cooled down a little bit since earlier. It looks a little like we have a little bit more contrast, maybe the angle of the sun, or not sure exactly. Oh yeah, things are definitely cooler over there, it seems like. Still got some mirage, but the obstruction is pretty obvious. We're closer to New Orleans now. There's less obstruction, as one would expect to see. I'm going to also back out and show you the causeway and Three Lakeway Center. There's the bascule, 16-mile bascule center frame. See, actually, one of the, looks like one of the towers, cars, so there's the cars, yeah. You see the cars right on the horizon, they just kind of disappear. opposite Marinesman Tower, the 8 Mile Marinesman, if I recall. I think that's what we're looking at there. From here you can see just how much of the bridge we actually see whenever we get into that position where we can see. I'll take advantage of perspective because we're talking about long distances. I mean, relatively long distances. But there now is 3-leg way, a little bit further now in the pan. Also clearly obstructed by the horizon. Now remember that there is 3-leg way, which is the building we're looking at there, and right next to it is 1-leg way and 2-leg way. Both those buildings are also pretty tall. 2-leg way is right about 200 feet, I think. It's nowhere to be seen. And any of the buildings next to 3-leg way are also missing. So it's pretty obvious observation here. Oh, losing focus again. Yeah, it still does that at the very end of its focal length. It loses focus pretty easily. That's one thing I'd like to see fixed. But I think those birds are not beyond the horizon. Let me see. Oh no, they're in the foreground. So I'm kind of, I'd say about 20 feet above the water right here. I'll do another observation here in a second where I'm like right down by the water, so you can see the difference. I apologize for the shaking. This is all handheld. Oh, and just like the other observation, I'll try and get the focal length, or not the focal length, the angular width of New Orleans to about what I see with my eyes. Let's see. This is all just eyeballed, but that's about it. I mean, it's pretty close. Yeah, that's about the angular width I'm saying. So you can see this with your eyes right here. And of course, I'm talking about a screen, the viewfinder. So it's probably bigger on the big screen if you're looking at the big screen, but something like on your cell phone, if you're looking at this on cell phone in portrait mode, it'd be pretty comparable. So yeah, there really is no excuse. Whenever I zoom in, the amount of obstruction does not change. Same amount of obstruction. That's max focal right there. Max optical, I should say. Pretty clear observations minus the mirage. Pretty good for summer, that's for sure. All right, so let's walk down to the shore all in one shot here. I did turn the wind cancellation on. I'm not sure how the audio is going to work out. I'm going to try and keep this original audio just so it's obvious it's all one shot. also give you a wide angle shot of the pier I was just standing on. I was just standing up there, right next to that railing. Alright, so let's get down here right in the riprap. Alright, so lower altitude now. Let's find New Orleans again. And 3 Lakeway. Trying not to get water on my lens here. Actually, having a hard time seeing 3 Lakeway. Let's go to the Crepuscular first. Clearly lower down. Actually, I don't see 3 Lakeway. Where is it? Maybe I'm too low. Okay, let me stand up. Hold on. Oh, there it is. It's further to the left. Oh, being thrown off. Okay, let's get back down. Okay. There's the basket. There it is. Come on, please. There you go.